That's a great face.
Should we do that for the thumbnail?
I think we made a good list. I think actually this should be, touch wood, straightforward.
Yeah, okay. Hi guys! I am here today with this random person.
Hi!
Don't know if you know her.
You're in my house, you better know who I am.
I know you. They don't. Nobody
Okay,
knows
that's
you.
fine.
She's very unknown.
I'm a wallflower.
This is the wonderful Jen Campbell if
Hi.
you're not familiar with her. So we are going to talk to you today about juggling!
Yay, not actual juggling. Don't know
Wow.
how to juggle, can't really juggle, difficult.
What happened was I thought we should do a video on juggling and Jen completely misunderstood and thought she meant juggling work things. So when I came here this morning with my juggling balls, she was like, "What?"
That's not what my list is on, G. A lot of you have been asking us to do this. I get a lot of requests on my channel about this. How do you do all the things? We're going to give you tips on how to do.
Somehow we've managed to come up with some sort of advice on how we manage to do it, because most of the time I just think to myself, how am I doing this? But I think practically there are things that we are doing.
This is the thing, Jean said this to me about show. Oh, actually, I suggested it. I was like, I wanted to make a video on this, and I don't know if I have anything to say. Then I made some lists and was like, actually, I got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I do love a good list, so
yeah. But I thought it might be nice to start off by listing the many things that we juggle.
Yes.
But it is worth pointing out that we worked really hard to get to the places we are, but we also appreciate that we're very fortunate that we get to juggle things that we like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who wants the list first?
I don't know. You can go list first if you want.
Okay.
What do you do, Jean? What do you do? I feel like I should have a microphone.
Okay, so at the moment I am working as a creative producer over at Pan Macmillan, which are a publishing house, and I work there 4 full days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a part-time PhD student, which according to the PhD handbook from my university equates to 20 to 30 research hours a week for like 40 something weeks a year. They give you weeks off.
That's nice. That's nice. Consider it.
So I'm doing my part-time PhD. So I occasionally give lectures at the university, which do not come underneath my 20 to 30 hours of research.
Mm-hmm.
I also, as I have an interest in becoming a long-time academic, try to spend time writing academic articles for submission. I also run my YouTube channel where I post content weekly as much as possible, and occasionally do freelance work as well.
Okay, hi. I am entirely freelance now. I didn't used to be, but I made the change in 2016 to become entirely freelance. I was working also in book selling before that. So I'm an author, so I write books, non-fiction, poetry, children's books, short stories. I do everything that comes with being an author, so doing events and publicity and marketing and stuff like that. I also run a YouTube channel where I talk about books and do freelance work working with other companies occasionally for that. So I worked with the Bailey's Prize last year and with Northern Ballet and with the Bookseller. Aside from that, I sometimes do freelance work with publishing companies. I work for book festivals, I do writing workshops, I give talks at universities. Sometimes I write articles and do freelance work for that, and a job that I also started doing recently, it's a freelance one so it pops up occasionally, is being a judge for literary prizes, which has been really fun. So I was a judge for the Costa Prize, at the moment I'm judging the Somerset Maugham Award, so lots of different things, but all of them related to books and writing. So we've come up with 4 categories to help you get stuff done, and that can apply to many different things because we've been jugglers for a while and have juggled things.
Very different things.
Yeah, very different things. Like going back to, well for me, I'm saying going back to, it's a long time ago for me, 10 years ago when I started doing my degree but also worked. So Jean's just a baby, she's only 24, she's little.
6 years ago I started doing my degree.
Yeah.
And we both we're the kind of people who always worked part-time even when we were at university doing full-time degrees.
Yeah. So basically these are a list of things that we have come to learn and lists we made for ourselves through life experience. Writing and giving you lists so that you don't have to panic about it. Okay, so the first category
is plan your time. So our first piece of advice is plan your time, and we have a collection of different tips to help you do that.
We have a list on lists.
We have so many lists.
So this is about planning and organisation.
Yes.
So first of all, prioritise your time. So make lists of things that you need to do, lists of things you need to do today, tomorrow, this week, this month, so that you can work out when things need to be done. And I think putting them in separate lists makes it seem more manageable as well, not so overwhelming.
Yeah, and sort of designating specific time to specific tasks. So for me, I'll say this Sunday coming, for example, is a PhD day for me, and I'm not allowed to do any of my other tasks on that day. I'm only allowed to do PhD on that day.
So block off your time.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you might split up the day, but I wouldn't go crazy. Like I might say I'm doing a morning, if I wake up early in the morning, to 12 is freelance work, but then the second half of the day is PhD work.
Yeah.
Or I might split up the PhD stuff, so I might be like, if I'm teaching a class, I might give half the day over to teaching the class, I might give the other half of the day over to writing a grant application, but I wouldn't go crazy and like try and designate every hour of the day to a completely different task.
No. So also I think a good thing to do is to make things manageable and realistic. So whatever you have to do today or in the long term, work out how long you think it's going to take to do that task.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate, because then you're going to have a to-do list with too many things on and you're going to feel crap at the end of the day when you haven't managed to do most of the things on that list. So be realistic with yourself, be kind to yourself, but also strict.
Yes.
Yeah. Be realistic, but strict.
I tend to overestimate slightly.
Yeah.
And I like to, I don't think, you said this didn't really work for you, but I personally can quite easily convince myself that I have earlier deadlines than I do. So when I was at university, if I had a essay due in, I'd write in my diary that it was actually due in a week earlier than it was. And if I'd written that down in my diary, I was convinced, just because I get quite anxious about deadlines and time. So that was my new deadline, and it would mean I'd be aiming for an earlier day, which makes space for new things coming up, or panics, or mistakes, which is quite nice.
Yeah, give yourself a leeway. I'm not good at conning myself into thinking I have an earlier deadline, but definitely making sure that you have enough time in general is important. Make sure that you have some kind of diary. I mean, that's a very obvious thing to say, but a lot of people these days like to send me Google Calendar invites to things. My brain finds it very difficult to work like that. I need things written down in front of me. So whilst I will accept the e-invite or whatever, I have a diary where everything is I have a Moleskine diary, so a little one, but then I also have a desk planner where I can look at what I'm doing that week all laid out.
Jen got me one of those for Christmas.
Indeed, it says I am very busy across the top. It's true.
I like that as well, because I find as well, if you're doing tasks that are really different, so like say you're working to a book deadline and also doing some freelance work.
Colour coding.
Well, this is just having it all in the same place, isn't it? So I have a Google Calendar at work and it's just got work meetings on it, but I need to see my whole week, including the other stuff I've got to do, in one place.
Just make sure that whatever calendar you are using, you keep it up to date. I mean, that's an obvious thing too, but just do that. Also, manage tasks. So if you have lots of smaller tasks that you can do one after the other, try and organise it so you're doing those all at the same time. Say if you have a lot of emails to answer, do that all at the same time. This hour is for answering all of the emails that I need to do, because if you're in that mindset of doing that kind of activity, you'll get through it quicker. So
don't put things off. I tend to put replying to emails off, like, oh, I'll deal with that later, but actually you've made that task into a much longer task than it needed to be.
Yeah.
It really isn't as complicated. That's a piece of advice to myself.
Utilise your time. Don't have lost to time. Obviously, we all need downtime and we all need, clear headspace. Yeah. So you don't want to fill up every second of your day, but if you have a tube journey or a train journey, use that time to answer emails if you need to. Some people ask me about scheduling reading time. I don't tend to do that I don't at all. I don't schedule reading time as part of my work day. But if you're someone who wants to schedule in reading time, think about other ways that you can fit stuff in. Can you listen to an audiobook while you're walking for the bus or something? So just think about time you might otherwise consider not useful. Yeah. Make it useful.
Yeah. Like I used my train journey home to Edinburgh at Christmas time to write a conference paper proposal, because it was hours long. But sometimes you might just think to yourself, oh, that's my day dedicated to the train ride, nothing else going to happen.
Yeah. No, make stuff happen. Work out when you work best. So if you have to schedule in time, say you're wanting to do a writing project or some kind of other work outside of your job, work out when you work best. Is it before work or is it after work?
Yeah.
And then schedule in what you need to do when you're most focused.
We're both kind of morning people, aren't we? Yeah. So like, obviously I work during the day some days at an actual office, and sometimes I'll just wake up a couple of hours early, which does sound mad, but actually I'd rather go to bed early, come home from work, read my book and relax in the evening, and get up super early when I'm like fresh and awake and get stuff done in the morning, because that's when my brain functions. So I could do some uni work or film a YouTube video before I go to work.
Yeah. Which brings
Nobody else is moving and the world is quiet and still.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Motivate yourself. You're gonna do some motivate yourself. Have a designated workspace. It doesn't have to be a room. I don't have a room for working, which is quite bad when you work from home, but I don't have one of those. But I do have a desk that is my workspace. It's nothing else. So I know that when I'm at that desk, I'm in work mode.
Yeah.
Have something to start your day, so trick your brain into starting to work. So you were saying that
I always have a shower and get dressed. In the past, and that's something I've worked on over the years, because I definitely at uni
you've worked on having a shower and getting dressed.
No, genuinely though. Because I also grew up in a house where my mum works freelance, and this is something we both talk about, is the fact that quite easily in the morning you'll get up and think, oh, I've got some tasks to do, and just do them in your pyjamas, but then you never get to that point where you get out of your pyjamas and hours have gone past in the day and you just feel kind of rubbish, and then you spend time in the middle of the day getting ready when it's better to get all that done in the morning. So have that shower, get dressed.
And sit down at your desk. Put yourself into work mode. So if you sit down at your desk with a cup of tea, that might be a signifier for you that you're starting work. Also, at the end of the day, have a signifier, I'm finishing work. So that might be having a shower.
I need to be better at this.
Or like I need to be better at it too, but help yourself switch off. Don't wait. Don't wait for people to give you time to do things. Make time to do things. Also, don't wait for inspiration, because you can actively seek inspiration. Just like, that. You can actively seek inspiration. You could listen to music or do research or read articles on things that, if you're doing a research paper or you're writing a book or whatever, you can actively seek that inspiration.
Yeah.
Do not wait for it to hit you, because that's not what happens in life, generally speaking.
NaNoWriMo is quite good for that in philosophy, and the idea that it's about just getting words on the page.
I will do this. I will word vomit for a month. Yeah, and I'll sort it out later. Yeah.
Like, this applies to writing fiction, to writing, whether it be writing an essay for university, writing part of your PhD thesis, writing a poem, writing a short story, writing a novel. Words are better than no words, even if those words are rubbish.
Yeah, you can edit something that you've written. You can't edit something that you haven't written. And we're all busy people, and we can all say, I'll do it tomorrow. Do it now. You will thank yourself for it later. Also, we're all shit when we start. We're all shit, and that
Nobody's perfect at the beginning.
So that might be career-wise, or literally in a task that you're starting. Even though it's a new book, it's not going to look great when you're starting. It needs a lot of love and attention and practice. You're only going to get good at something if you practice. You're only going to be able to practice if you make time.
Actually, this is just generally in writing, but there's nothing wrong with deleting stuff later as well. Just because you've written something, don't grow so attached to it. Like, but I actually used time to write it down. Yeah. But that time used to write it down was an amazing process for your mind. So like,
that's only something that I am learning now. I mean, I knew it,
I know,
but
it's like when you're at university and a supervisor says delete that paragraph, it adds nothing. You're like, but I spent time on it. So
you spent time on knowing that wasn't worth saying.
Yeah, it was still productive because your mind was doing something productive and working through it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it needs to be in the finished thing.
No. Next, don't procrastinate. Don't do it. Only you can do this task that you have set yourself, and if you don't do it now, you're only going to have to do it later. Future you will thank you for it. Get on and do it now.
And on the topic of future you, have goals and keep them in mind. So remember why on earth you're bothering to juggle all this stuff in the first place.
Yeah, so having goals like, I want to achieve this by the end of the year, but also goals like, why do you want to do the career you're doing? Not just a specific task, but remember the good things. When you're feeling crap and it's hard, you need to remember why you're doing it in the first place. So motivation, sit down, make goals for yourself so you can work out how to get there. Short-term goals and long-term goals. Give yourself breaks, but do not fall into a hole. So say you've worked on something for a few hours, watch a YouTube video and have a cup of tea. But don't watch 10 YouTube videos and have a cup of tea.
Which brings us on quite nicely to
take care of yourself! Way! When you're working, eat healthy food. If you're eating crap, you're going to feel like crap, because if you just eat sugar and lots of caffeine, you will do this the whole day. You will have like peaks of energy and then you will sink down again. So have things that can sustain you throughout the day.
Have some porridge.
Have some porridge. Drink lots of water. And also get up and walk around. And if you can, get outside once a day.
Oh my gosh.
Try and do that, because I sometimes forget.
Even if you just walk around the block.
Yeah.
It just makes the world of difference. Clear your head.
Go buy some
get
milk or
fresh
something,
air.
for some tea.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, it's so important to remember to do that. Just working your limbs. It's mad how much of a difference that makes.
It really
and yet
is.
you put it off so often.
Yeah, because you're like, I have to get this done.
Yeah.
But if you just go for a little walk,
Now,
put things in
personally,
perspective.
the next tip is my personal most important tip,
Ooh.
which actually, though it sounds kind of counterproductive, and that's to take time off.
When Jean says this to me, I panic. I panic.
But it's
It's
true,
important.
because your brain will not function at its utmost if you don't take care of it and give it a rest. So actually, when you take time off, you are helping your future work and contributing to your work. That is not to say that you should think, I should spend 90% of my time not doing anything and then the 10% will be brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's be sensible here. What I mean is schedule in either some time to yourself or some socialising time, whatever you think will feed you personally. So maybe say if you've got time that week, give yourself a whole day to say, I'm going to go and have fun with my friends. That might not be possible, especially if you're juggling tons of stuff. So instead say, I'm going for dinner on Wednesday night with one of my friends, and that's got some socialising in. It's really good to have conversations and not talk about work.
Do what we do. We go for breakfast.
Yeah, we go for breakfast early in the morning, and that's really
Like
nice.
with each other, not just other. I mean, like we meet up and go for breakfast.
Yeah.
So before work.
And that's lovely, because it's just, you need contact with other human beings, even if you're a bit of a loner. Like, I love spending time by myself, but I also think it's really important to spend time with other people.
Yeah.
And I also think it's really important to say, like, if you've got Saturday and you can say, oh, I'm going to stop working at 3, and then the rest of the day is just for me to cook myself a nice meal and watch a movie. It's those little blocks are really, really important to actually making you better at what you're doing on your work hours.
Following on from your point is that freelance life can be lonely. So what I found really helpful is the BookTube community, and there are quite a few of us who do freelance work, and having a Voxer group and talking to people, because not only is that supportive and you can help each other out, but you can share tips as well.
Actually, we didn't talk about this before, but this is so similar to doing a PhD, and lots of people have said that to me in the comments, like, how do you deal with like the loneliness of being a PhD student? Because obviously a PhD student doesn't generally go to class, and you don't need to see people. You could quite easily just be by yourself forever. So if you can study or work in a library or a space where there's other people also working, because even if you're not chatting with one another, I think it's really nice to be surrounded by people and feed off their energy.
Living and breathing things. Be aware of your mental state and know your limits. If you burn out, because I can do this, I can keep on going, and if you're feeling, I don't know, that might materialise in different ways to different people, but I can become very, very anxious and just very, very stressed. Just know the signs within yourself. I recognise them. I'm very bad at responding to them, because I think, oh, sorry, I'll deal with that later. I've got to get this done.
Yeah.
If you can kind of stop it before it gets worse, that's a good thing to do. And something that I really like to use is the Calm app. Hashtag not an ad, but I actually don't do the meditation on it, but it has settings like listening to rain or whatever, and just putting that and just sitting down for a minute. Yeah.
I like listening to classical music sometimes when I'm working, because I think it makes me forget about the outside world, and that's something as well, like going back to a wee bit about designating time, but also self-care is trying to forget about the other things you've got to do when you're doing one task.
Don't just block off your time, block off your mind.
Yeah, and I know that can be hard, but it's so important to give your most to a task, but also for your state of being. You'll go mad.
Yeah. And a way to practically deal with that, say if you're working on writing something or like something that you're focusing on doing, maybe switch off your internet so that you don't get emails coming through asking you to do other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, every so often, sit down and make a list of all of the stuff that you've done, because everything can seem overwhelming, but it might not seem that you've done lots, but if you have been putting in that time and consistently doing that, you will have done some things. So sit down and make it, well done. Sit down and make a list of those things, because I think it's good to reflect.
Yeah.
Not only because it'll motivate you to see what you've done, but also you can cross-reference those with the goals you made in the other tasks to see if what you've been doing is helping you achieve your goals and whether you need to adjust.
And those can be little things.
Yeah.
They can be tiny little things that you've achieved that day, and just make a little list. It's nice.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think we mentioned this in the timekeeping thing, so we've got to put this back in it, but I forgot to say, so when you're planning your time, also break things down into more manageable tasks. So don't say, today I'm writing this entire book. today I'm writing this chapter.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Because then when you meet that smaller goal, you'll feel really satisfied in yourself.
Self-care. What do you need to do, Jean?
Say no.
Yes, Jean.
Sometimes it's good to say no, even if that sounds like a cool thing. Are you already doing some cool things, and are they more important to you in the long run? Will this other opportunity maybe come back up in a couple of years? Like, juggling is all well and good, but there is a limit.
There is. And I think that moves us on quite nicely to freelance tips, because that's part of it. Say no. At the beginning of your freelance career in particular, you're going to think that you need to say yes to everything.
Yes.
You're going to think that you need to do all of the things. And for a while, maybe that's a good idea. Take the opportunities that you can do that are, ultimately manageable. Experience lots of stuff. But the more work you do, you'll probably realise that you want to focus on certain things. And then say no to things that don't fit into a goal that you have. So what is good in respect to saying no is making a list of goals that you want to achieve and where you want to be, so that when companies contact you or opportunities come up, you can look at your goals and think, is that going to help me get there?
Sometimes though, something could contribute to a goal, but it's not important enough that you should sacrifice something else you're already doing, because there is a finite amount of time.
Also, know your worth and have self-respect, which coincides with the saying no. At the beginning of freelance career, you're probably going to have to do some stuff for free. You are, because unfortunately that's the way it works. Some of that stuff is okay. Some people will try and take the mick a bit. Yeah. You've got to work out what is worth it for you, and there comes a point where you have to say, actually, I'm worth this, and I have the experience, and I am offering you something. This is my job. So no, I'm not going to do that unless you're paying me. You might have exceptions to that rule, like if you're working for a charity or whatever. But again, have rules for yourself. What are you going to say yes to? And know your worth and your value. It's important, because not only does that help you in your career, but it also helps other people. I think it is really important in the creative industries, because there are companies out there who will try and take advantage, especially if you're freelance, thinking that you don't know what the market's like. Yeah. Which is also why you should talk to other people.
Yeah, and if you want help, this is obviously like personal preference, but if you feel really at lost and don't know anybody else in your life that is freelance or is working in the creative world or in the writing or journalist world, there are things like the NUJ which you can join, which has rates that it can provide you to give you guidance on what other people are charging and what other companies are paying.
Yeah, same with the Society of Authors. They have a list of guidelines, and that also will help other people in the industry too.
Yeah, because if you keep doing things for free, then other people are not going to get offered money either.
Exactly. So yeah, if you have a website, make sure that it says what you do and has, keywords in so that people can find you and can contact you easily. What I like to have is it's not really a CV, but it's an informal document which says who I am, my credentials, and the kind of freelance work that I offer, along with my rates, so that if a company gets in touch with me or a university saying, will you come talk about this, I can be like, hey, here's a bit more about me. So it means that I don't have to constantly say, not waste time, but spend time telling people the same thing. I have a document. It's great. I send it to people. Also, that makes you look professional. So I think it's a good thing to do. And if you're a writer and you're sending out submissions to literary journals or things like that, make sure that you send out more than one thing at a time, so that when inevitably you get a rejection somewhere along the line, rejection happens a lot, you already have something else out there, so you still have hope in something else. It keeps you going.
This applies to lots of things as well, like the general advice to people who are applying to go to university, or to apply to multiple. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
And general advice, if you want to get into freelance within an industry, say within the book industry, it's difficult to start freelance when you don't have the connections and you don't have the contacts or experience. So what you generally have to do is get a job in that field, like a full-time job working in a publishing house or working for a newspaper or something, to make contacts and to understand how the industry works from the inside before you can then make a move to distance yourself and do freelance work. That's generally how you become freelance. A lot of people ask me how you become freelance. You do it from within. it's very hard to get in from the outside.
Yeah.
So that is what you
those
need
are
to
also
do.
the places you develop the freelance skills.
Exactly. And that's all. That's my list.
Hopefully some of this was helpful.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below.
If any of you were wondering how to do get published and that process
some really
as a
useful
video,
videos.
so I'll send you.
And then I've got some videos on relaxation tips and time management tips, which are for university but apply to general life.
Yep.
So those will obviously be linked down below as well.
What do you guys do? What are your goals?
Yes.
What do you want to
Have
achieve
you got
in
any
life?
advice? Because I still feel like I could do with some more advice.
Teach us. Teach us.
Share your expertise. If you'd like to see me and Jen impart wisdom in the future, let us know. We might.
This
I
is the
live
thing.
here now.
We have realised that we see each other all the time, but we never film together anymore.
I know.
So we need to do that more. We better go back to work, hey Jean.
Let's go feed our bodies and our souls so that we can actually do some more work.
High five.